What is up, you guys? We are here for our Saturday night secret sermon. This is my favorite segment of the week, Secret Teachings of Jesus. I have matzah in my teeth. Every day during Passover, you have to eat matzah. The more matzah you eat, the more miracles you can reveal. I probably should have eaten like the whole box this week, but yeah, matzah is a very healing, sacred food. And it's funny too, because I was realizing this week how traditionally growing up, I don't know if you guys did this where you were from. I'm from Tennessee. And so if you were sick, you would eat obviously chicken noodle soup, which matzah ball soup is like the Jewish like cure-all food. And so chicken soup, I think, is like a spin-off or, a different version without the matzah balls in it. But matzah crackers are essentially like what they look like are saltine crackers. And so if you were sick, especially if you had like an upset stomach, you're always given like a sleeve of saltine crackers to eat. And I just wonder if the root of that actually came from the healing power of matzah. It's just something that I was wondering about. So I thought that was interesting. So tonight, let's see, last night was Friday. So last night was Good Friday, which would have been the day that Jesus was crucified. So Saturday would be the day that he is still in the underworld or in the realm of death. And so at sunrise on Sunday morning, the sun rises, right? The Christ will rise. That is when the resurrection happens. That is the return of the light, right? The rebirth of the new radiance, an elevated, transcendent radiance, which I think is very beautiful. So we are in that time of the in-between. And when we study late at night, the sages like to do this particularly, it provides us with a particular level of protection and surrounding light that we wouldn't have if we studied during another time of day. And we're able to reveal more wisdom without having to go through a process of maybe challenge or chaos to embody that wisdom. Following Passover, there is the counting of the Omer. And what that is during Passover, we're exposed to this opening in the cosmic windows of time. And this is true for all of the holy holidays. And we are able to connect with a particular quality of the light of God that isn't necessarily available to us at all times of year. It would be too strong, too overpowering. And so it's like charging a battery, right? But now we have to ground the energy that we received. And so if we take what we didn't earn, that creates a phenomena called bread of shame. Bread of shame creates resentment or emotional problems or chaos or calamity, challenge, sickness, even self-loathing and self-sabotage. So in order for us to receive the light and earn it, we have to go through a process of embodiment. And so when we study, or have you ever bought like a self-help book, and the moment you like turn and look at the table of contents, it's like already there's like an on-brand challenge for what the book is about? That's like knocking at your door. It just shows up immediately. That's literally what that is. It's like the cosmic forces putting your money where your mouth is. And so when we study late at night like this, there's this added protection, especially in the midnight hour, that helps us, midnight to 3. It helps us embody the wisdom without a lot of extra chaos that can occur, or a lot of extra process, or a lot of extra challenge. Also because we are pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone to, suppress the urges of the flesh consciousness to want to be lazy, comfortable, go to sleepy times, be eating and snuggles and watching TV right now. Instead, we're pushing ourselves beyond our flesh consciousness, and we are doing something that pushes us out of our comfort zone, that expands us, that's proactively growing and learning about the mysteries of the Torah and the scripture, and the Gospels. So that reveals a lot of special light as well. So I think it's interesting, and I always think it's super awesome when Passover and Easter overlap, and I love when Christmas and Hanukkah overlap. I think it's extra special those years. And so tomorrow we complete Passover and it's Easter. So I think that's super interesting. And tonight's passage is very much in line with the idea of Passover and leaving Egypt and leaving the past behind us and freeing ourselves and liberating ourselves from the control of the ego, from the control of fear, selfishness, lack, doubt, lusts and addictions. And so I think that's super interesting. So tomorrow it would be the resurrection, and Mary Magdalene was the only one who listened to him. I think he brought it up 6 times. I'm going to be killed and I am going to resurrect myself. And so be there ready, waiting for me. And she was the only one that showed up at the tomb ready for going to look for him and find out did he resurrect? Is his body here or what? And so Jesus appeared to her first before he saw any of the others. And she was the one that ran back and told the rest of the disciples. And they didn't even really believe her at first. They were just like, why would he come to you of all people? Why are you a woman and not us? His best buds. Why would he reveal his secret teachings to you and not, one of us or whatever? So, it was all very on purpose, but Mary was the only one that was listening and had that full childlike belief that went beyond what her senses could feel, see, taste, and touch. She was able to connect with Jesus from the bridge of the heart and from the information processor and the intelligence of the heart, that intuition and on that level. So she even said to him, how is it that I'm able to see you? Is it in my mind? Is it a vision in my mind, or is it a vision in my heart? And to some degree, he did appear to her what seemingly was a physical manifestation, but she knew that she wasn't necessarily seeing him with her physical eyes, that she was seeing him with her mind's eye, right? That single eye that he kept talking about through the Gospels. So tonight's portion is called Slave and Free. And so just to give you a little bit of context, I've always wanted to study the Gnostic Gospels and read, the Dead Sea Scrolls and things. And so I thought, well, if we made it a weekly segment, then I would have time to do that, and it would be something consistent. We could read them and learn them together. And so for a long time now, over a year, we've been in the Gospel of Philip. This is found in the Nag Hammadi scriptures that were located in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. And we only have 14 portions, counting tonight, left of Philip. So if we say we have this episode every week and don't skip, it's 14 more weeks of Philip, and then we are into another gospel. So that is crazy. I'm excited. I am sad. We've been in this for so long. I'm excited though about what to cover next. It's going to be something cool. Either maybe the Gospel of Mary or Thunder Perfect Mind. I haven't decided yet. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so I'll read you the portion, which is only a couple of sentences, and then we will unpack them together. And I'll give you the downloads that I'm getting. Okay, slave and free. People who are slaves against their will can be free. People who are freed by favor of their master and then sell themselves back into slavery cannot be free again. So let's say that again. Let's read that again. People who are slaves against their will can be free. But people who are free by favor of their master and sell themselves back into slavery again cannot be free. Now, how poignant and fitting is this for the finale of Passover? It is the 7th day, so I believe it would have been today that the parting of the Red Sea happened for the Israelites. And so what happened was they were on the run. And first of all, not all the Israelites left Egypt. Some of them opted to stay in the slavery, in what they knew and what was comfortable. They had the fruits and vegetation and food available of Egypt. They had steady work. They had lodging. They had a comfort zone there, even though they were slaves. And so for some of them, going away from this into a complete unknown wilderness with no plan, no infrastructure, no guaranteed provisions was too much for them. So only a small portion of the Jewish people left their slavery in Egypt. And so the portion that did leave, this is why it's so incredible that the Jewish people have survived over and over and over again when they've been scattered to the ends of the earth, and they've been the target of genocide and constant oppression and enslavement over and over and over again throughout history. The fact that the population of Jewish people that we have now is still here is a miracle. So it is pretty amazing if you have Jewish DNA, if you have that and you find out about that. It is incredible that you weren't lost to antiquity and lost to the ages. So it's something to really value and cherish and be proud of, because you're not just any person, you're a chosen person, which is amazing to me. I love that. So slave and free. People who are slaves against their will can be free. People who are freed by favor of their master and then sell themselves back into slavery cannot be free again. So back to the story. So when the Israelites made their exodus and they were on the run, Pharaoh's army was approaching and gaining on them from behind. And so they came up to the Red Sea and they were trapped. They were like, oh my gosh, if we go forward, we are going to drown. And Pharaoh's army is behind us and they're going to kill us or take us back and severely punish us. And it's going to be like really, really bad at this point. So what do we do? And so basically, Moses, when he, we always imagine him just being like knocking a staff down and being like, open the Red Sea. He used a sequence of the 72 names of God, and they sang them in a certain way. But they had to start walking. It was one person, I believe it was Moses, that he walked into the Red Sea and he had to get up over his nose, over where he could breathe before the seas parted. Think about that symbolically. When we put ourselves out there and we take an act of faith and we take a leap of faith, many times it's crickets at first. We're in the dark. We're like, okay, nothing's happening. Think about all the times we've talked about the 4 phases of creation, right? You get the initial idea. Phase 1, it's a passive desire. Phase 2 moves into an active desire where you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to burn the midnight oil. I'm going to give all the effort. I'm going to do all the things I need to do. I'm going to make all the changes inside. I'm going to make spiritual effort and physical effort and material effort and emotional effort. And I'm going to come at it from every angle. And then creation phase 3 is the part where you don't think it's going to work. And you have to keep continuing on in faith, in certainty, before creation phase 4 happens, before the seas will part. And so that's basically what Moses was walking out in real time. In that moment, he had to get above his nose. He had to get in over his head before the water would part. And he had to be so determined that he wasn't turning back. And so it wasn't, I'll do this and then, or when this happens, then I'll walk into the water, then I'll walk into the sea. It was, no, I'm charging through the sea. I'm walking through this water, and by God, come hell or high water, we are parting this ocean. We are going into the water, and we're not turning back. And so that faith, that certainty, that act of determination and will and perseverance, and that channeled down the miracle that God was waiting. He was waiting, but we have to carry out that kind of audacity and that kind of certainty and that kind of grit many times before we will see the results of that stepping out in faith, that act of faith. So that's when the seas opened and the Israelites were able to walk through with their caravans and all of their possessions and belonging. And so then what happened was that once Pharaoh's army started following them into this tunnel of water, and they were in too far to turn back, God closed the waters down onto Pharaoh's army behind the Israelites. And so it swallowed all of their chariots and horses and progeny under the waters. So I think that's pretty amazing. Now, right after they crossed the sea, for a period of time, the Israelites were high on this miracle, and they saw it was fresh in their mind, and they were like, oh my gosh, God loves us. Adonai is going to take care of us, and we're going to be fine. And they were unified, and they were in brotherhood, and they were together, and their unity and their faith combined kept them in a miraculous state where for a while there was no sickness, there was no death. People had these miraculous healings. Even people who were losing limb, had lost limbs, they would grow their limbs back. Miracles, crazy miracles were happening. This is when they were around Mount Sinai. But then they started to get tired. And then they started to get tired of the manna that they were given. And they started getting antsy. They wanted a place to settle down. When are we going to get to the promised land? So then they started questioning, and then they started griping and bickering amongst one another and disagreeing, and they lost their unity and they lost their certainty. And that's when they started becoming afflicted and having chaos and having these curses and sickness. And the snakes came and started biting them because they had erected some of the Babylonian, they were starting to worship the Babylonian gods, thinking, oh, can we appeal to them? And so they cast this bronze or golden calf, the golden calf of Bel. And so that broke the covenant with God. And that's when they started getting bitten by all the poisonous snakes. So when we are in unity and when we are in unconditional love, brotherly love, and we don't necessarily, sometimes we can disagree, but we can still not have hateful malice between us, and that is still unified. When we have certainty in the Creator, even when we don't know what the next step is, when we don't know what the wilderness holds next, but we believe because every day we've had that portion of manna to make it through the day and make it in that portion that we needed, that daily bread was there for us. And so we know we can depend on that the next day and the next day and the next day. So it's all about the consciousness. Where is our consciousness? What is the seed level of our consciousness? Are we choosing to be certain and in faith? And it's a choice, because we can do this even in the midst of our fear, even with trembling knees and trembling ankles. We can choose, even feeling the fear, to be certain in the Creator. So many of the people, as they were griping and they were becoming afflicted and they were growing tired and weary, they were like, let's just go back to Egypt. We know we can go back to Egypt and we'll have our jobs. They'll want us to keep working for them. They've still got all these projects going on, right? The Pharaoh will take us back, and then we'll have something to eat. We'll have our own old beds again, and we'll have a place to live, and we won't be traveling around in this Bedouin nomad style living, and we can settle down and make roots and be more comfortable. And that's when they really had to choose. Are we going to be free? Are we going to be a sovereign people of our own and be people of God? Or are we going back to Egypt and being people of the Pharaoh and being slaves to the Pharaoh? And so this story is relevant to all of us because this is what happens in our mind and in our consciousness, right? Are we going to be slaves to our fear? Are we going to be slaves to our greed? Are we going to be slaves to this world system? Or are we going to be liberated from this and be a people of God and know that, no, it's not my job. That's not my job security that actually gives me my manna every day. But that is only a channel that God allows to be a channel in my life to send me that manna every day. It's not the job. It's not the customers that come into my restaurant. It's not my tables. It's not my tips, right? It's not my boss that gives me my section. It's God. He ordains my portion for the day. And whatever that portion is, that is the portion that I am supposed to have. And if it's less than I think I should have, then I'm not being grateful enough. I don't appreciate it enough because there's some reason why my portion is what it is. Last night, or no, it was the night before last. I was out with my sister last night for dinner. This is so funny, guys. Okay, so part of the process, the ritual preparation for Passover is to deep clean the house and make sure you don't have one breadcrumb left in the house. You have to get rid of all the grains that are going to expand. You've got to get rid of all the flour, put it in a container, put it outside, throw it away, get rid of it. You're not supposed to have it in the house. And you're supposed to withstand from drinking or eating anything made from grains, wheats, things like that through the 8 days. Well, I wasn't thinking the other night at work, and we make everything fresh from scratch every day at my work. And so a few of the different foods, they batch for each shift. And so if we don't sell out of that at the end of the night, we can take things home. And so there was a whole tray of these apple jam and cheddar biscuits left. And I was like, ooh, I haven't had my biscuits in a minute, and these will keep until Easter. I'll put them in a box and I'll take them home. I wasn't thinking you're not supposed to have bread in the house. I didn't think of it at all. And so, God's so funny. I got in the driveway, I went to reach for my box, and it flew off into the floorboard, opened up, and all the biscuits touched the gross carpet. And I was like, oh no, I ruined my biscuits. I have to throw them away. And I was like, I guess this is meant to be. Maybe I said something negative earlier and they cost me my biscuits. Well, I was telling somebody tonight, and my friend goes, maybe God did that so you couldn't have your biscuits. And I was like, well, I wasn't going to eat them. And then I was like, oh, wait, I forgot. I wasn't supposed to have them in the house. I had some left over tonight, and I've left them in the car, and I'm going to go out after midnight and bring them into the refrigerator. I think I can do that after midnight. But I was like, oh my God, you're so right. God literally threw my biscuits to the floorboard and got them dirty, so I couldn't bring them in the house, and I would just throw them away in my outside trash can because I wasn't supposed to bring the leavened bread inside, and I was just a dingbat, and I totally forgot about that part. So isn't it funny? Your portion is a good portion, and that's the portion that you are supposed to have, regardless of if you drop your biscuits on the floorboard. There's a reason for it. It's amazing. So all these people wanted to go back to Egypt, but they were committed. They were in at this point. So this is the same story over and over again. You know, we We get over a fear, or we get over an ex, or we're so quick to lose our consciousness, right? I work on my, temper and my sassiness all the time. And it's not like I can't easily be provoked again and then just be right back into my wrath. And it's like we're so quick to like fall back into that, right? But so people who are slaves against their will can be free. So think about this as a mindset, right? Think about, like, imagine yourself if you were enslaved. You could have a mindset that God is with you everywhere you are, and that you're being taken care of. And you could endure that situation and those circumstances, and maybe even find peace within it and acceptance. And you could learn to survive, and you could learn to even maybe find joy again and thrive and find favor even, right? And maybe you get a chance to be freed, right? Like the Israelites. And so, but what happens, like, you can find the freedom within the circumstances you're in. And then once you are impenetrable to that, once your circumstances don't dictate how you think and how you feel, once you own that and you have sovereignty over that, then there's no need for the outer lesson, the outer circumstance. So poof, right? You end up like getting an escape plan or being liberated, finding your freedom like the Israelites did. But what happens when you've been freed and then you're like, you know what? I don't want my freedom. It's too big for me. I don't want to be sovereign. I'm telling myself I'm not able to think for myself. I'm not able to choose for myself. You know what? I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to be a slave. I'm comfortable. I know the ropes. I'm just going to stay in the circumstances and I'm just going to be in this. And it's okay. I have another choice, but I'm just going to go back to it. There's no freeing a person that can't break out of that mindset, that consciousness that would cause them to want to go back and choose that once they've been freed, right? Spiritually, on a soul level, on a consciousness level, when you have a chance to break out of your current limitations and you go back by choice, then that's you using your free will to choose slavery. And at that point, how can you be woken up? Like, so you've already been woken up. You've already been showed the man behind the curtain, but it's like you still want to stay in the matrix. And so at that point, you can't be saved because you're choosing the enslavement. You're choosing the lie. You're choosing the illusion. You're choosing the comfort zone that is always going to be selling yourself short, right? So, we see this in people who have, for instance, struggled with addiction, right? I actually knew a man who was one of my friends who had been sober from heroin for over 20 something years. And he was going through, and I've heard, this is why I've never wanted to do anything opioid related. But he struggled with that addiction, and it's so hard once it's in your system, once you have a taste for it, once you know what it's like, it's so hard for people to break away from that addiction. And so he had been clean for over 20 years. And then he went through some really hard times. There's this an existential, a crisis of identity. It was really deep, heavy stuff. It had to do with finding adopted, like his parents. He was adopted, and things like that were interwoven with that situation. Just all the major pain points and vulnerability points that were getting targeted for him. And during this time, he started falling apart and spiraling downward. And he ended up, I think, back on maybe dabbling with heroin again or something to that nature. And then he ended up like actually committing suicide. Everything just got too dark and he was going down like this downward spiral and he couldn't get out of it again. And so it's like that is a good example of something that will enslave you. And once you get away from it, it's like, oh, you're freed, but it's so hard to stay free, right? It's difficult when you have an addiction like that to stay free of it. But if you keep that distance, it's like a safe distance there. But you start getting around it again, you start dabbling, you are walking down a dangerous path. Same with our mindset, right? Think about if you have that one person that was that one person you were obsessed over, that drug addiction love, where you're like, if you ever had like one of those charismatic narcissists who would just suck you back in every time. And finally you block them, you get free of them and you don't talk to them for years and you're completely emotionally over them. And then all of a sudden, one day they always pop back up, right? They always want to like charm you and get that attention going again and get that, because for you're their love heroine. You give them that reflection back of themselves that they want, that they need. Your obsession validates them. And so it's this codependent sort of cortisol, oxytocin, dopamine kind of thing going. And it's so hard once you've gotten over someone like that to fall back in with them. Like all your friends are like, no, we had to listen to this for years. We worked on you for years to get away from this person. And now you're like getting caught up with them again. Oh, no. Let's read the passage again. People who are slaves against their will can be freed. People who are freed by favor of their master and then sell themselves back into slavery cannot be free again. So people who are enslaved against their will, it's like they can be set free and they can go and be free. But a person who actually chooses to come back into that slavery by their own free will, you can't do anything for them. They're using their free will and their sovereignty to stay in that situation, in that consciousness. It's the same with a mindset. It's the same with like an emotional wound or a spiritual wound that you've had, something has happened to you, right? And it was against your will and you felt victimized. But if you find a sense of radical acceptance within it, and you decide and you determine, you know what? I cannot control that this happened to me, but I can choose that this is going to be happening for me. And I am going to heal from this. And I am going to become stronger and deeper and more compassionate and wiser because of this. And I'm going to use this situation to help others who have also gone through the situation. And I'm going to make something out of my life, and I'm not going to let this rob me of my future. And I am not going to let this define me as a victim, but I am going to rise above this. And this is going to be character building, and it is going to add to my legacy, and I'm going to will it and make it to be so. With the help of God, God is my witness. I am going forward. I am moving forward in my life. That person is freed from something that they were enslaved against their will. However, there is another person who has gone through that same experience, and they choose to let that rob them of their life. They can never get over the pain of it because they're always fighting that it happened. they can't get to that first vital stage of radical acceptance. They're fighting. They're not, it wasn't fair. Why did this have to happen to me? Why did this I was a victim and blah, blah, blah. And like they can't move past that in order to begin the healing stage, to move to the empowerment stage. And so that person, even though they could have gone down one road with their mindset, they can't get out of it, or they choose not to work towards the steps that will help them move beyond it. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that it's not fair. You're justified in all those things. But your life is your own choice, and what you take, the cards that you're dealt, what you do with your life in context to them is up to you. And so it's not to say that things aren't painful, but suffering beyond that pain is something that some people hold on to, and they can't let go of it. They can't let go. It's too precious to them. They can't let it go. They don't have to condone. They don't have to approve of what happened, but they can't forgive in order to release themselves from the slavery of that pain, from the toxicity. And many times it destroys their life. It creates sickness. It creates addiction. It creates self-sabotaging patterns. And so what maybe was one event or a circumstance ends up replaying in a million different ways because they will not let go of their hold of that pain and their perception of it and their inability to move forward from it and heal. So do you see how that applies in like very literal ways and figurative ways and spiritual ways and emotional ways in a lot of different instances? So let's read this again. People who are slaves against their will can be free. People who are freed by favor of their master and then sell themselves back into slavery cannot be free again. So think about this on a spiritual level, where we come here into this sort of like flesh prison, and we can't remember our full spirit, our full divine nature until we begin the stages of awakening. And when we become spiritually awakened, it's like that choice where we can go down the path of liberating our spirit and our consciousness and remembering who we really are and rising above our lower nature. And so then, even though we are enslaved against our will here on earth as souls in a body that is limited, restricted, and bound, we can be awakened in our soul and our spirit within that body and realize that, wow, if I ran out of storage on my phone, so I had to clear some things. So we realize that if I can transcend this physical, limited human restriction on earth, then that empowers me in the afterlife, right? We can only work on our soul's progression while we are in this physical restriction here. Once we're out of it, like that's the growth that we've been able to do. We're kind of stuck in that level of consciousness and that level of spiritual elevation until we come here and go through this whole rigmarole again. I can't think of how horrible it would be to end this incarnation too early and then have to be reincarnated and born on this planet right now again. Oh my God, with with no 1980s to enjoy. Not getting to live through the 90s and then just going to total suck all the time. Oh, oof, I do not envy these kids. And I'm like, oh, do I have to come back again? Oh. But, well, so once we're here though, it's like being awakened and then deciding, no, I'm just going to continue on and choose to be ignorant, choose to be in my darkness. I'm going to choose to continue to hold on to my shortcomings and not even try to improve. I'm not going to give myself to self-improvement. I'm not going to try to heal anything. I'm not going to try to transcend. I'm not going to try to explore the mysteries of the spirit or any of that. It's like I see it, I know about it, but I'm choosing to stay in the darkness. I want the easy. I want vacation. I want overeating. I want just give me all the material satisfaction of life and keep all the rest of it for yourself. It's like glimpsing the truth of it all and then going back to the matrix and being like, whatever. I'm just going to stay distracted with whatever's in front of me and pretend that that's all there is. And so what happens is that when you shed this little flesh suit, you're like trying to navigate the afterlife and you don't understand what's going on. You don't have the skills or the wherewithal or the development of your soul or spirit to understand how to transcend, how to navigate the afterlife. You've wasted your time and now you have to go before the judges and they're like, you were given this gift of life and you didn't do anything with it. You just went through the motions and punched a clock and lived for the weekend, and you never thought deeper into life. You never thought anything about deeper into your heart or healing. You didn't become a better father, mother, daughter, sister, brother. You just went through the motions and let it all pass you by. Like, why did you do that? You've wasted a precious, valuable incarnation on earth. And you didn't do any of the work on the density that was your payment. That was your rent to be here in the physical realm. So people who are slaves against their will can be free. People who are freed by favor of their masters and then sell themselves back into slavery cannot be free again. Now, it's like also choosing your consciousness. We can either be in hell on earth at any given time or heaven on earth at any given time. The experience that we're all having could be very similar, but your consciousness and your hermeneutic lens through which you're perceiving things is going to affect the quality of your experience. And you can understand that, like, for instance, right now, it could be very tempting to want to go somewhere else and be in a happier country and be a citizen of somewhere else in the world and eat beautiful food and just leave all these problems behind us. And that would give us the illusion of safety. But God can protect us anywhere. And we can also be in danger anywhere. Political unrest can happen anywhere. Hate crimes and prejudice can happen anywhere. And we can be protected and safe anywhere. God is the one that is keeping us safe, is keeping us provided for, is keeping us protected. And yes, sometimes your spirit does tell you go this way or go that way or do this thing or go do this thing. But if it's your emotions driving you and your fear driving you, you can't escape your fear. Your fear will be waiting for you there. Your emotional reactivity will be waiting for you there. So it's your emotional reactivity that keeps you enslaved, because you're jumping, and it's like when your fear says jump, you say how high, how fast can I do this, right? Even when your excitement says jump, buy now while supplies last, like jump on this opportunity before it's gone, and your reactivity causes you to do something. You're not a sovereign of yourself. You're not in control of your own mind. You're not practicing free will. You're practicing reflexive reactivity. You're not the cause. You're the effect. The thoughts, the consciousness, or the cause, they're in alignment with the cause. The emotions are the effect of the cause. If we want to have affinity with the light of the Creator is the cause, never affected. And so we have to learn and practice and discipline ourselves to be more and more like the cause, not the effect. And that means that we have to be able to slow down and observe our thoughts and observe our emotions and detach from them and witness what's happening before we then make a choice. We have to tune in underneath the storminess of our emotions, beneath the volume of all the loud voices and chaos around us, and be able to tune in to the soft, quiet voice of the Holy Spirit. Where is my destiny leading me? Where is my destiny calling me? Not where is the world system trying to yank me this way or that way. Consume this, buy that, be this, to be distracted with this. Let us make these decisions for you. Just leave it up to the app. Trust the app to tell you. Lean on an app. Depend on an app for this. It's like those Christian apps, the Hallow app, and there's like another one, a couple other ones, and they look nice on the surface. But the thing is, you're not developing your own discipline or your own relationship. Like, it's fine if you can do that on your own, but then people, what they do, they get in a habit of something telling them, okay, read this, pray now, and then they lose their instinct. They lose their inner connection. What feels miraculous is when you're praying and you're connecting with God and you need some guidance and you need some encouragement, and you just have this sense hit you. Oh, I need to go open my Bible. This has happened to me before. I need to open my Bible and then I'll hear the book, and then I'll hear the chapter and the verse. And I'm like, I'm not a scholar, so I don't know if that even exists, right? I don't know if that chapter even exists. But I go and I see and I check it out, and I open up and I look and I'm like, oh, well, by golly, there it is. And then I read the passage and I am taken aback in a moment of awe, feeling the presence of God with me, because that passage was exactly what I needed in that moment. And it wasn't because I robotically got on an app and did what the app said and got on AI and discussed AI with AI and AI told me what to read. You know, people relying on AI, it's like they're bypassing their own intuition. And so they're leaning on that as a crutch. I like to always imagine, what if an electromagnetic pulse hit and the grid went down and we had no AI and we had no internet? That, you know, for me, I've always been a big proponent of having physical books, right? Having physical tools that are permanent, that aren't just like, oh, well, as long as you have an internet connection. I'm like, oh yeah, like you just have a solid internet connection. Have you ever been out to the rural areas? Not always a solid internet connection, right? It's like when you can't listen to your music on iTunes because it's not like downloaded to your phone like it used to be. That gets on my nerves. I always try to make sure that I've got like my files downloaded and they live on my phone, because if you get in a spotty area, then nothing your phone has works. None of your apps work. You're just like, oh, okay. Well, people act like it's just like, oh yeah, no big deal. You just need an internet connection. It's like, it doesn't always work, right? You don't always have a good connection. You can build your own strong connection, and it doesn't depend on anything. It doesn't depend on having a Bible. It doesn't depend on having an app. It doesn't depend on having electricity or even a lit candle. If you can go inward and pray and spend time in silence, God will reveal himself to you. Himself, herself, abstract self. God will reveal God's self to you. So many times growing up, like I've never been the best Bible student. I've been lazy about reading the Bible, I'll admit. But what's interesting is that I've always been a proponent of spending time in prayer, spending time in quiet, spending time in nature amongst the trees, pondering life's greater mysteries. And let me tell you, there is a certain cosmic truth that will come up from like a wellspring from within you. And you don't need to read it off a page. Now, this is not something that like we need to read God's word. And we also need to understand how to interpret it in the context, because it can certainly be twisted, and it is being twisted these days, even down to what translation you're reading can be very different. I know just from studying the Psalms recently, side by side with the Hebrew version and then the King James version, it's like the King James version is a whack version that was definitely had some authoritarian motives behind it. And it wanted to uplift the elite, and it wanted to keep certain groups very subjugated. So I love the Hebrew transliteration that I found. Hold on, I'll show you guys. So you have to get it in different volumes. This is the Torah. This is the first 5 books of the Bible. And it's in the Hebrew letters that you can scan, and your soul gets like this connection just from scanning the Hebrew letters. And then it has the Aramaic spelled out phonetically in English letters, so you can actually pronounce the Aramaic. And then you can read the English translation underneath. And this is, I feel like, one of the closest translations. There's some debate on which one of the ancient translations is the purest, most original translation, even of the Hebrew. There's a couple of different schools of thought there, but I think this is based on the Masoretic text. But even, I will tell you this, even just taking the time to scan the Hebrew letters, and then to read the Aramaic, and then read the third line, so many insights. So much revelation comes forth when I spend time with this version of the Bible. And it doesn't have like this tone that leaves me crunchy or like, yeah, I don't like that. Like sometimes I've read certain translations of the Bible where I'm like, something's off. So I'm not feeling this so much, but not this one. I love it. And that, it's true that you do have to understand that the Torah is not meant to be read literally and taken just literally. It is an encoded text that is it's like a technology written in code, a coded symbolic language that reveals the spiritual technology underneath it. It's not just, this is the history lesson, this is a code of moral ethics. If you just take it off the page like that, that's how we get in barbaric situations. And not any context, not any historical context, not any context for the fact that like the human civilization had to grow and evolve. Even Jesus came back and he was like, look, if you think I'm here to tell you that we've been doing everything so well for the last 1,000 years and we should just keep going like we are, you're wrong. Okay. Everything's whack as fuck. We need a big revolution going on right now. So things are always progressing, and we can't just take the things that we're reading so literally. There's more going on than meets the eye. There's always like 4 levels of interpretation of what we're seeing. So let's read this passage one more time and then we're finished. Slave and free. People who are slaves against their will can be free. People who are freed by favor of their master and then sell themselves back into slavery cannot be free again. People who are slaves against their will can be free. People who are freed by favor of their master and then sell themselves back into slavery cannot be free again. So happy Passover, Chag Sameach, happy Easter, happy Resurrection Day. When the sun rises, the sun rises. I hope you have a beautiful day tomorrow. I will be going home and eating Easter lunch with my family. We're doing turkey and dressing, and we're going to celebrate my birthday, and all my fasts are completed tomorrow. Lent, Passover, all of it. So yeah, ice cream, cake. And then I'll be working in the afternoon for the evening. And then tomorrow night, we will be meeting back for our usual weekly energy oracle forecast. So until then, happy holiday. And I hope you have a beautiful and awe-striking and miraculous day tomorrow. Ciao.